Viewer contributions make local programming possible on WNIN. Become a member of WNIN with your contribution so we can continue to make this programming available. Visit WNIN.org and click on the donate button.
Well, I'm glad to see that you've dressed appropriately today.
I want to thank our 5 million viewers who responded to our last show. I had many votes for the casual look. I just want to show that I have versatility.
You are very versatile.
I am very versatile. I'm going to get a haircut tomorrow, even though I don't need it. So I'm trying to clean up my act a little bit.
Who told you you don't need it?
Well, I generally say I need to look a little more Republican, and that's just one of those things.
I can't even top that. Let's go back to what we were talking about last week this time.
What, the mess up at the federal level or the state level?
There's enough people talking about the federal. Let's talk about the state.
Yes.
The last-minute insertion in the budget changing how trustees of our wonderful alma mater are selected.
They did many terrible things at the last minute, and we've got a great guest today to talk about how they impacted our school funding. But as far as it went to IU, not only did they eliminate the seat that I was elected to 5 times, but they reduced the student trustee. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the first trustee in Indiana University history, first student trustee, which you served 2 years, right?
Right.
It's been 2 years since 1974, or whenever that law went into effect. 75. They've reduced it to 1 year. Now, did you know all of the names of the vice presidents and where the regional campuses were in 1 year?
No, but after I was appointed, I parked in the parking lot in Bryan Hall, and Vice President Williams had me towed because he didn't know who I was. But I learned over the weekend, listening to our affiliate in Indianapolis, This Week in Indiana, John Schwannis, claimed he's an IU alum. He's as upset as we are. His source tells him that even though it was in the budget bill, the president of IU is the one who shepherded those changes in.
There are many rumors, and that's one of the big ones. I don't have any source or way to know whether that's true or not true, but a lot of those rumors stem from the fact that it's hard to believe that a legislator from Tipton, Indiana, cared whether or not tenured faculty members or emeriti faculty were on certain committees, and that bill dug into those kind of weeds. But also, perhaps we should talk about the fact that our lieutenant governor demanded a new SUV with all the bells and whistles, yeah. And for $87,000, our taxpayers have evidently provided him with a new SUV.
And also, our Secretary of State did an economic development trip to India that we all paid for. What does the Secretary of State have to do with economic development?
Are we talking about Diego Morales?
Yes, sir.
Who had a questionable resume at the time he was elected to this office?
And had been fired from that office before he got elected to it.
Well, this is the kind of groupthink that elects someone with 34 felony convictions President of the United States.
We're not done yet on Indiana.
Oh, I'm
with
sorry.
Our top officials.
I'm sorry.
The Attorney General is now staring down the barrel at not his second, but his third disciplinary complaint filed by Senator Liz Brown from Fort Wayne.
I guess I'm not fully conversant with why our Attorney General, Todd Mosqueda, has got yet a third disciplinary action. What is the gravamen of this?
I'm so proud to be a Hoosier.
Yes. What did he do this time?
Well, Senator Brown claims that she killed the bill that would have forced local law enforcement to assist ICE.
Okay, in immigration matters.
Right. And he claimed that she did that because she has a relative who's an illegal. And it couldn't be further from the truth, she said. She had a press conference. She is livid, to say the least. So he's now angered one of the most senior, powerful people in the General Assembly.
I don't think old Todd cares much about that. I think old Todd cares about one thing, and that's his political future. He'll join whatever class action is brought by the other attorney generals as long as it gets him a headline. It's too bad. And it is the product of one-party rule, both locally, not locally, I don't mean in Evansville, I mean statewide and nationally.
I'll go right back to you, Pat. As the only Democrat at this table,
Well,
your party is not offering any alternatives.
we have lost, it's a sad thing to me that we have lost the ability to communicate with Americans. We're the party that tried to fix health care and brought you what was, in a derogatory fashion referred to as Obamacare, but it got pre-existing conditions covered and your kids on your policy. We brought you things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Your party had a lot to do with the Clean Air Act. I will say that, Nixon, frankly.
The first director of EPA was Hoosier Bill Ruckelshaus.
Which now, of course, the federal government is trying to tear down. But the fact is the Democratic Party used to kind of represent working people, and it was the country club Republicans. Well, that has reversed. Now we're the pointy-headed liberals that are elites somehow. I don't know how that happened.
Annually at Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, and we don't communicate with the guy in a pickup truck with a six-pack. And I just don't believe Donald Trump really has that person's best interests at heart.
Well, you can make a case for it, but the point is, things are not going to turn around in this state until the other party wakes up and develops some leaders to move forward and give the voters an alternative.
I think that's correct. When it is so bad, that a great statesman, the like of which we may never have again, certainly in my lifetime, that we sent to the Senate. We had two great senators, actually.
Right.
Birch Bayh, who amended the Constitution not once but twice, but Richard Lugar.
Right.
When Richard Lugar can lose in a primary to Richard Murdoch, who in his last election in Vanderburgh County did not survive in a county council race, things are wrong.
Exactly.
Things are off kilter. Richard Lugar was as fine a man, as a great a senator as anybody, and I didn't always agree with him, but I always respected him. We don't really say that anymore.
Todd Young is doing a good job in the Senate. Well, he is doing it.
Todd kind of lost me a little bit when he's worried about getting flanked from the right and votes for Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Wait a second. His hand was sort of forced on that. But where he is in the big picture, he's doing a great job.
Well, when you worry more about your reelection than you do about what's right, he knows in his mind, as a military guy, that Pete Hegseth shouldn't be the Secretary of Defense. Todd Young knows that.
That may be the case, but when the president wants his appointee approved by the Senate, I understand the pressure was on him, but the big picture, he's taken on Trump on some other bigger issues that affect all of us.
We will see. But you know what? We're awful lucky that on a local level, we do have respected, professional public officials, and we got one of them right here in a festival for your intellect and a great solemnity of his pending retirement. Stay with us, because when we come back, we have a successful public figure that's going to talk about his 14-year tenure as our school superintendent. Don't go away. Welcome back to our 5 million viewers. At least 4.5 million of you are graduates of the Evansville Vanderburgh School Corporation, so take heed. We are honored to have at our table right now Dr. David Smith, Superintendent of the Evansville Vanderburgh School Corporation, who today delivered State of the Schools address to the Evansville Rotary Club. Perhaps, Dr. Smith, we ought to just roll that tape.
Well, this is a 2-hour program, so that probably would fit.
Thank you for joining us. You sit between two proud EVSC grads. First thing we got to say is, why are you leaving now?
Well, it's been a great run, 14 years as superintendent in a large school district. That's kind of unheard of today.
It is.
The average tenure is less than 3 years. So, but I seriously was planning on going next year. But then when I looked at the terms, and we have staggered terms of board members, by me walking away this year, the new superintendent's going to have a year and a half with this current board. That stability, I think, is essential for success in the future. And frankly, I think our corporation's success is due to the stability of this school board.
We'll let Les jump in here in a second, but I want to talk, I want the public to know what you've given 50 years of your life. And I think part of your success is that you are a homegrown product of these schools, and you were at every, I mean, just give us your resume. You were at every level of this corporation.
Actually, 56 years of my life have been spent in EVSC. Now, 13 years as a student, just to be very clear, but 43 years as a teacher and administrator, and blessed to be a teacher for us for 19 years. And then I was very fortunate to be a building level administrator for 5, went downtown for what I was told maybe 3 months, maybe longer, as the interim deputy superintendent. That was in June of 2006, and I've been there ever since.
I want to compliment you on one of many things that you brought to this system. You preserved the arts. Your background is instrumental music.
Yes.
And this is kind of a private thing, but I don't mind saying it. My son would not have been in high school or finished, but for his involvement in band. And when I saw you at all these football games with your camcorder recording the performances, I mean, that really showed that your belief in the arts. And I tell you what, without the arts, and you became superintendent at a time when corporations were getting rid of the arts.
Right.
That was
well,
great.
I appreciate that, Judge. We have invested heavily in the arts, and it's paid off. And it's really not because of anything special that I've done. Certainly our team has done everything that we have achieved. But I do know firsthand the benefits that being in fine arts provides for students. And I said today in the state of our schools that because of our investment in fine arts, our students are better prepared with employability skills that they would not have gotten without that extra effort that it takes to be in fine arts.
Boss, as we look back, I call him boss. He's been my boss for his 14 years and even a little bit before that. As you look back on your, by anybody's measure, successful 14 years as our superintendent, what are you proudest of?
Our people. That's an easy one. Everything is relationships. Everything. And the relationships that we have fostered as a team, I think, have served us well. We are able to do noble and worthy things to benefit the lives of others. And it's good and righteous work. So I think that is, without that, nothing else would have worked. You know, people have talked about the pandemic, and we were the largest school district to be in-person instruction each and every day that year following the pandemic. And people even today mentioned how beneficial that was to their families because...
And when you say largest school corporation, you're not talking about in the area. You're not talking about in the state.
No.
You're talking about...
Really in the nation. Yeah.
Do you hear that? In the nation. We continued to render, and we continued to feed...
Right. Yeah.
A bunch of kids.
800,000 meals.
Even during the summer.
Right.
Amazing.
Great partnership with AmeriQual, but 800,000 meals were provided when we were closed.
Let me ask you this. 50 plus years, you've seen some changes.
Just a few.
What is the most significant change you've seen in public education?
Well, gee, Judge, there's a lot. I think what I would say that kind of encapsulates all of it is really, and I hate to say this because this is a great show and I appreciated your banter before I came on, but I think it really is the loss of local control. And
Elaborate.
Pardon? Well, you know, we have an elected board elected by the citizenry of Vanderbilt County, 7 individuals. They did not elect legislators from Tipton to dictate how Vanderbilt County schools were going to be run. Now, I understand that there are some things for the common good for the citizens of Indiana that should be uniform, but the continued encroachment in terms of how we have to do things in Evansville, which should be very different from how things are done in South Bend or Lafayette. When you enact a law, that is a one-size-fits-all policy statement. And frankly, the people that have voted for our school board deserve to have their influence and not have that influence usurped by someone that visits Indianapolis 2 months or 4 months out of the year.
Good point.
Our school board, who of course ran nonpartisan, and from what I can tell, both of our organized local political parties kept their nose out. Wasn't that your experience?
Absolutely.
I don't remember the Democratic Party leafleting for anybody or the Republican Party. Well, then that needed to change.
And I'm going to tell you that change, elaborate a little bit. The change is so stupid because they're not going to run the primaries. I mean, all they have to do is declare either Republican, Democrat, or nonpartisan.
To David's point, that's somebody upstate with an agenda visiting it upon a place where it ain't broke.
Exactly.
Don't fix it.
Right. And frankly, I think it insults the voter because we're going to decide what's best for schools we're based upon a D or an R after your name. That kind of removes some of the responsibilities that voters have to know where people actually stand on positions for students.
Exactly.
We hear a lot, Superintendent Smith, about the next wave, which is more school choice, I make air quotes, more vouchers, more ways that people can place their child where they want them to go. What's your take now at the end of your run about all this noise about school choice?
Well, first of all, I do believe in parent choice. These bills are presented as though they're parent choice bills, but the reality is the way they're implemented, they're school choice bills. Schools are picking the students. The parents are not being able to pick the school. I am all in favor of every parent saying, if I want my child to go to public school, they should be able to pick. If they want to go to private school, they should be able to pick. And then every school, public and private, must enroll and keep that student. That's not what we have in the state of Indiana, unfortunately. The other interesting thing about this is...
Well, and we got to elaborate, meaning that if a child, for instance, has special needs, needs a speech therapist, has a behavior issue, a private school, a charter school, has the right to say, sorry.
And specifically private schools do.
Yeah.
Charter schools are public schools.
Yeah.
And we are blessed with two great charter schools in Vanderbilt County.
A lot of these arguments don't...
Yeah, I don't want people in Vanderbilt County to think that every charter school is like Signature School. No. They're not. But specifically, that school choice bill, as I said, is I think bad because parents really don't get their say. Schools are choosing. What I was going to mention, though, was any time in our nation where voters had an opportunity to vote on school vouchers, it has been soundly defeated. So anytime you ask citizens what they think, they vote no. They've only been put in place when General Assemblies, the state legislatures, have voted them in. So we now have universal school choice beginning next year in the budget.
And part of the state property tax dollars that are collected have to go to those schools.
Right. Yeah. Then that comes full bore in 2028. But the state is going to pay $93 million more next year for it to be universal.
Let me ask you this question. The leaders, quote unquote, if I use your quotes, in the General Assembly believe it's going to improve education. As a professional educator for 50 plus years, is that going to improve education? Are we going to have kids better prepared for the future with this system in place?
Well, I'll simply say that this is what Governor Daniels said, this is what the Fordham Institute has said recently, that basically the original premise was to provide other opportunities for kids that were in F schools. You shouldn't have your educational outcomes determined by the zip code in which you live.
Right.
The promise of that has never been realized. Once again, when schools pick who they choose to educate, I'll say this, and I put my head on the pillow every night, knowing that this is a fact. Following the example of Christ, public schools serve all.
Right.
Period. We don't get our results based upon the students we exclude. We accept everybody. It's in the Constitution of Indiana for the common school tuition free.
Correct.
So they're going beyond that now. They're spending $1 billion in the next biennium budget, $1 billion for kids in school choice, and they have never attended a public school. $1 billion out of $1.35 billion to pay for kids that have already attended or already attending private school. I'm sorry, don't tell me that you want to pay teachers more when you live in Indianapolis And there's $1 billion of money that could be going to public schools
Right.
that isn't.
And as you said, whenever the public is given a chance, not legislators in Indianapolis, whenever the public is given a chance, most recently, right to the south, Kentucky voted against it.
Right. Kentucky, Colorado, Nebraska.
You have been very innovative, and we don't have time probably to talk about, when I ask you what you're proudest of, you, as you are, humble servant, point to your people. But the fact is, the Career and Tech Center, the Shepherd Academy, you all maybe don't know that we have kids who go to school part day in a local business and then get paid in the afternoon. I forget what the name of the program is.
Opt-in.
Opt-in. I mean, so many innovative initiatives with no help from the legislators in Indianapolis.
Well, but once again, you know, I get too much blame for things that go wrong, get too much credit when things go right. But we couldn't do that, I think, if we didn't live in this great community. We have the Academy for Science and Medicine. There's going to be a big announcement, stay tuned, in another month, and a great partnership with the University of Evansville, and Chris Petroskavich has been great to work with. But we are busting at the seams with our Academy of Science and Medicine at Central High School and Health Sciences at Career and Tech Center. Those are phenomenal programs. We have a wide variety of incredibly beneficial and outstanding programs that you don't see in any other public or private school setting. You just don't see it. And I think people in Vanderbilt County think that these things happen everywhere, and they just don't. But once again, that's not just EVSC. Those are the outstanding business leaders that we are blessed to have in Evansville.
The General Assembly property tax cut is going to be implemented. It's going to cost all local governments, including the school corporation, a lot of bucks. How do you make up that shortfall?
Well, you know, when I started this job, and perhaps a little bit of a history lesson, 2008, 2009, the state took over 100% of the funding of what was the general fund at the time. Now it's the education fund. In 2009, the morning after I was appointed Assistant Superintendent for Business and HR, Governor Daniels said, we're going to have to institute some austerity measures. You're going to lose $6.5 million. Today, EVSC receives $25 million less than we did in 2009 when adjusted for inflation. In 2010, according to the GDP of Indiana, there's been a 21% reduction in funding from Indiana for its students. We don't even fund kids now like we did in 2010. They're funded at a lesser level. So when they say that you just have to create greater efficiencies, that's a challenge. We have done, I think, remarkable with what we have been given. I think one of the challenges with Senate Bill 1, LSA extended that financial implication up to 2028. The bill actually has impact through 2031. So the supplemental credit of 2/3 that comes off of your gross AV is going to have huge impact in 2031. The personal business property exemption from $80,000 to $2 million is going to have impact here very, very quickly. I simply say that because you're now going to have local governmental entities pitted against one another. You're going to see people's taxes raise or go up because of the local income tax. You heard it here first, but that's my prediction.
The school corporation has no local tax they can raise.
Right.
Like the county, so you're between a real rock and a hard place.
And that's why when the state took over funding for education in 2009, 100%, we were beholden to whatever they decided to do.
Boss, the director over here flashed his 2 fingers at me. So in this last minute and 45 seconds.
Typically, you only get one.
He hasn't even talked about the great legal advice he's received. But in any event.
Despite that, he's been successful.
In the last minute and 45 that we've got here, 2-part question. Number one, somebody's going to have to replace you. He or she's going to have some challenges. What do you think, as you look forward, those are going to be? And second, your wish for this community at the end of your superintendency in terms of its public schools?
Well, thank you. First of all, challenges are not new. And the challenges that we've resolved in the past, that same methodology and approach can lead us well into the future. I do know who the selection is. The board did a phenomenal job in terms of due diligence and looking at all of the applicants. I think the public will be very, very happy. My prayer for them is support them. understand that it's so easy to be a Monday morning armchair quarterback. That does no one any good. I guarantee you that anyone that enters into that superintendency does so wanting to benefit every child he or she is blessed to serve. So support them. We live in a phenomenal community. I've said this now for 14 years at Rotary. I struggle to believe that you can have a vibrant community without a vibrant public school system. I pray that Indianapolis understands that and stops destroying our public schools. We educate 90% of the students. You destroy that, what's left?
Right.
And now that you've undergone all this body work and gotten yourself to be a perfect physical specimen, I assume you're not going to just ride off into the sunset. DavidSmith is going to continue to give to this community in some form or fashion?
Well, I hope and pray so. This community's been so great to me, but I'm going to reintroduce myself to my wife. I tell you, nobody knows what she's gone through the last 14 years. Right. Nobody understands. She sees things from a very different lens, up front and personal, and this arm was yanked out of its socket more than once when she said, "You're going to retire." But I love her, and the good Lord hopefully gives us some great quality years together, and I am looking forward to that.
Dr. Smith, best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you've done for our children in this community.
Thank you.
When we come back, I'll take one more shot at Patrick. Don't go away. Patrick, Sarah, our producer, stopped me in the hall before you got here. Want to know what we want to do for our show in June? I got a great idea. We talk about our Secretary of State. We talk about our Attorney General. We talk about our Lieutenant Governor. Let's invite them to be live on our show in June.
We would love to have all three of them, although I'm still sitting here sad to lose for the community a person of the stature and good faith and professionalism as DavidSmith. What a great moment we had here for him to talk about his 14 years of success. So we ought to invite those three people and say, what have you done for us lately?
So we can see the contrast.
You betcha. You betcha. Well, we will be on throughout the rest of the summer unless the judge decides to, I don't know, vacation somewhere or do something. But we appreciate all 5 million of you tuning in to Shively and Shoulders.